So let's talk about this polymeric sand, okay? So this sand right here is Techniseal's best polymeric sand for concrete pavers, okay? So let's talk about a little bit of the technology of this, all right? So how many of you guys been installing polymeric sand for years, right? When polymeric sand came out the first time, was it difficult? To tell you what's dramatically changed from back then to now, okay? So we all know that polymeric sand has some sort of, everybody says cement in it, right? So I'm just gonna tell you it's polymer, okay? So back in the old days, you'd take sand granules and put your polymer in there, which is the glue that makes the pavers and sand stick together, right? So they put them all together, and then when you swept it over the pavers, a lot of those fine particles, which is the polymer, got stuck in the pores, right? So it was very difficult to blow off, right? So now, the only dust that you see here, that you see going on here, is the actual aggregate dust. It's not the polymer dust, okay? So all those polymers, we found a way to put them all in one little capsule. And that's what it's called NextGel, okay? So, so it's basically easier, faster, cleaner to install because every time you sweep traditional polymeric sand, it's not being separated, right? So you got the binder, which is that fine particle, which we call polymer, and then you got the sand granule. So every time traditionally old school polymeric sand was swept long distances, a lot of those polymers were being left behind, right? So making the sand weaker and weaker. So in this case, you're not having that problem. So whenever you're done with this sand, you can actually put it back in the bag and use it again because it hasn't been compromised. Okay, so the other big benefit of it, of the activation part of it, because the water goes down through the joint much more faster. So if you have those fine particles, still like the old technology, remember back then you had to wet it, come back, wet it, you had to wait. This, you're gonna see how much more faster it is to water. So when we get to that spot, you're gonna see. So since the polymer is actually in one large particle size, it allows the water to go all the way down to the bottom of the joint, which is why it's such a much more stronger sand. So this one right here, the reason why I like to use this one, could use it on false joints, clay, travertine, pool decks where it's a lot of water, and vehicular commercial, clay, where the smart sand, it's a great sand, but it's more just your standard residential. Okay. Yeah, but if you're going to be bouncing back and forth from an installer's perspective from your crews, they have a different watering. This one actually waters much more faster and it's much more, even though it has more polymers, it's much more cleaner, okay? So for me, I personally would rather spend another $10 more a bag, and I know $10 seems loud, but if you do it, you break it down to square foot, so approximately, let's just say 100 square feet per bag, you're talking 10 cents a square foot. Just charge Mrs. Jones an additional 10 cents. They'll cover the cost of this. So generally, what I like to do is sweep everything, and then I run the roller on here. So let's get the roller ready. So the beauty of these rollers and what they were designed for, two things. Large slabs, large linear pavers, and textured pavers, and porcelain. So this won't scuff the pavers at all. And it minimizes cracking of pavers as well. Because if you're compacting large format paver, you're not trying to get those pavers to go down because they're not gonna go down. All you're using this for is to consolidate the sand. So see how the sand went down? Very important that you get some joint sand consolidation. So the next thing before we blow this off, guys, I just want to make sure that you guys are fully aware that where you're supposed to leave the height, because there's a lot of expectation where homeowners, they want the sand flush, and polymeric sand's not designed for this type of paver to be flush, okay? How many of you guys leave the sand cover these bevel edges? Okay, you don't want to do that. You're setting yourself up for failure, okay? Because especially this design of the paver, that bevel edge is to remain clean, because that's the style of the paver. If you leave the sand too high, you got to remember polymeric sand has no abrasive strength, only compressive strength. So when people walk, they naturally drag their feet, right? So if you have that sand flush, guess what? They're taking sand and they're taking chunks with them. Okay, so if you ever have a problem with a homeowner, we have an illustration right here on the side of on the back side of our bag. It states it 1/8 below the lowest point of the paver. Okay, the object of the polymeric sand is to eliminate erosion. It's not aesthetics. So if a homeowner wants aesthetics, choose a different paver. Okay, because then the sand would be exposed. So right now we just we compacted this this area about 2 times, and we pretty much picked up the remainder of the sand, and we put it right back in the bag, so you can actually be confirmed that you can actually use that sand again. Okay, it's not separated, so it's as strong as you actually once you bought it. It's strong as even after you swept it around a few times. Okay, so now the next step is we're going to blow the surface off, and then we're going to add the activation part. So I'm going to blow off, guys. I want to try to get all the dust off as possible, and then also try to level out the joints as well. So it's good to be aggressive, blow it all off, level off all your joints, and then you could do a final walk through, make sure you don't got high joints. The other thing, more importantly, is patio doors. Okay, want to make sure that you take out all the polymeric sand if you've blown some into the patio doors, because you don't want the homeowner struggle closing their doors. Okay, so activation. Okay, so now we're ready for activation. So I'm going to get a shower nozzle. So how many of you guys, when you guys are activating your polymeric sand, you're using an actual shower nozzle? Okay, are you guys? Is any of you guys using pistols and trying to do this and trying to do that? So you want to avoid that. Try to get one that says shower. Okay, so for this sand right here, you're going to always activate from the bottom up. Okay, so how many square feet did we say this was roughly?
120, 130.
So, okay, so generally speaking, you'd want to define approximately 200 square feet, okay, is the activation part. So if it's a driveway, start at the bottom, 200 square feet this way, 200 square feet at a time is what you want to do, okay? The old days of watering the entire job are all gone. Don't do that. If you're doing that, what you're doing, especially on a warm day, if you wet the entire job and by the time you try to come back, your sand's already activating and it won't absorb any more water, and then you're going to have a crust on the top. Okay, so it's better to do 200 square feet at a time to ensure I would say more consistency, and the manner of this polymeric sand, once the water hits it, those little gel capsules explode. Okay, and that's when it starts the activation process. So you're gonna see me, the first 15 seconds is just to put a little bit of weight on the sand, and immediately, there's no waiting, I'm gonna come right back and I'm gonna hit it for 30. And then I'm done for that section.
And then with that said, 2 things. The reason, and you guys all probably blow your polymeric sand off, is to get the excess dust off. And even though Techniseal's done a pretty good job of controlling the haze that has been produced in the past from polymeric sands, that general blowing is important, and then the amount of watering that he's going to do is important too. But it's really close to being dummy proof from having haze, but it's still good to follow the procedure to reduce the amount of polymers that rise to the top from the joints.
Yeah. So when you start seeing me activate right now, you're not going to see any foam, right? You're going to start seeing foam. When you start seeing foam, it's only coming out of the joint. It's not actually coming out of the paver. So actually, when you start seeing that foam, it's either you're sitting there too long, or it's basically I'm spitting back at you because I can't absorb water anymore, right? So here we go. Any questions before I start? So this is where it separates us from our competitor on this watering process, okay? Because this is all it needs. Now on a hotter day, you probably start, instead of 200 square feet, maybe 100 to 150, because once the water hits the pavement, it's evaporating, right? So you can only tell and be the judge. But traditional weather, 200 square feet, first 15 seconds, and then 30, okay? And always start at the bottom, work your way up. So this is a shower. I'm just gonna gently shower it just like this. Just to kind of get the first saturation going, so I can actually set the sand down. The object is not trying to activate the whole thing all in one shot. It's a 2 watering step process. That's about 15 seconds, sorry. Yeah, roughly 15 seconds for 200 square feet. Now, I'm gonna come right back. I'm gonna hit it for 30 seconds. So this is the little bit more slower pace, right? A little bit more slower pace. A little bit more slower pace. You got to remember, the paver also has moisture in it, and it's going to also help saturate. The idea, guys, is really only to saturate that small little joint. That's all it is. This is going to increase your consistency as well. All right, guys. Now, see where I was talking about? Where the binder's at? It's only in the joint. Now, if this was textured paver, I'd recommend taking a blower and blowing off the residual water that's in those low spots. Okay? You just blow that off. But pretty much, I'm done. Okay? That is it. There is no more rinsing. There is no more nothing. Like I said, I would take a blower and blow some of this stuff off, but it's fine.